Hi, welcome to our channel. For today's video, we will recap a romantic comedy film called The Proposal from year 2009. The plot revolves around a pushy boss who forces her young assistant to marry her in order to keep her visa status in the US and avoid deportation to Canada. Have you seen this movie yet? If not, grab some popcorn and relax. Among the largest publishing houses in New York is Colder Books, where Margaret Tate serves as the head editor. She is assisted by Andrew Paxton. Giving Margaret a manuscript he truly likes, he shares his ambition of becoming an editor himself. Margaret, however, declines it and claims she didn't enjoy it. Margaret is perceived as an intimidating woman. She has a pseudonym called the Witch, and all of the staff members are terrified of her. Her reputation is solidified when she dismisses Bob, one of the top editors there. He calls her out on her intimidating demeanor, and she responds by calling him out on his ineptitude and laziness. Margaret is later asked to her boss's office, and he praises her for landing a book deal with a well-known author. He continues by saying that the immigration decision has been returned, and it states she will be sent back to Canada for deportation. She offers to work remotely, but they reject that, stating they must let her go for an entire year until she comes up with a solution. And she carried it out. As Andrew comes to see her, she says they have been dating for a while and will shortly get married. Andrew is so overcome with dread that he can hardly even confirm her claims. Happy, the boss orders that the entire thing be made legal as quickly as possible. By the time they descend the stairs, everyone in the office is aware of this. Now, since he spends so much time making fun of Margaret, Andrew's co-workers make fun of him for being attached to the witch. When Margaret explains her circumstances and says she will file for divorce as soon as her citizenship is verified, Andrew objects to the idea in its entirety. Robert will become editor-in-chief after Margaret leaves. She reminds him. He's going to destroy Andrew's chances of succeeding as an editor by firing him as soon as he can. Once more, Andrew is in disbelief and perplexed. When they arrive at the immigration office, Mr. Gilbertson, the manager, queries the sincerity of their connection. If this turns out to be fraud, he warns Andrew, Margaret is going to be deported, but he will face a $250,000 fine and a 5-year sentence in jail. However, he will be fired if he reveals it right away. Andrew refuses to admit it. They will each be examined separately on Monday, according to Mr. Gilbertson, and their narrative needs to match up. They unintentionally let on that Saturday is Andrew's grandmother's birthday, and he's traveling to his hometown with Margaret. Outside, Andrew states that if he is to follow through on this, he must be promoted to editor. She is apprehensive at first, but in the end, she consents. He then forces her to make a formal proposal to him. She proposes on her knees in the middle of the street as payment for that. After accepting, he turns to leave. He claims to know everything about her, having served as her secretary during their travel to his hometown of Anchorage, Alaska. She is clueless about it, though. They arrive in Sitka, where they are welcomed by Andrew's grandmother Annie and Mother Grace. Margaret discovers that Andrew is genuinely quite sophisticated as they travel across the town and see that the majority of the businesses there bear the Paxton brand. Their home on the water is amazing as well. Margaret finds their rustic way of life difficult, and she even finds it difficult to descend the stairs to their boat. When Andrew learns that their parents have brought all of their friends and relatives to meet him, he becomes unhappy. Simply put, his mother is relieved to see him again after 3 years. Joe's father welcomes the pair to the party. Andrew feels a little threatened by his dad. It's obvious that their relationship isn't particularly well. He pulls him aside and questions Andrew's relationship with the harsh, controlling boss. Andrew then announces that they will be getting married. He tells everyone in the party about this. Gertrude, his ex-girlfriend, is present as well and offers her congratulations. They invite them to describe their engagement story. In her retelling of the story, Margaret highlights Andrew's tenderness and lovemaking. This degrades Andrew, who inserts a stronger, more manly version of himself. The entire group then forces them to kiss. They kissed clumsily at first, and then somewhat more appropriately. They are assigned a single bedroom for the evening. Andrew sleeps on the floor after Grace and Grandma Annie left. Andrew tells Margaret that his mother is going to take her to meet the remaining women first thing the next morning. He gives her a hug after that to impress his folks. He next visits his father, who is at the coast enjoying golf. Because there is a sizable business here that is waiting for him, he asks Andrew to return to Sitka. Andrew finds it annoying that his dad brings up the topic once more. When asked if he desires his father having an additional child who would have chosen to remain here, he declines. Margaret ends up in a nightclub alongside other women in another location. A spectacular show is presented for them by Ramon, the most popular male stripper in the area. Margaret's head is covered by the women, and Ramon tends to her needs on stage. Feeling embarrassed by the entire situation, she steps outside to get a little air. Gertrude appears to have a little chat with her. She shares with Margaret an inspiring story of how, years ago, Andrew proposed to her, but she declined because he wanted to leave Sitka. That is the reason why they broke up. The women later witness Andrew furiously carving out a canoe as they make their way back home. Grace rushes to Joe knowing that this is a sign of his dissatisfaction. She scolds him for pressuring Andrew to take on the family business. Their son will avoid them even more as a result of this than he already does. She tells him to repair it. Margaret enters the shower without hearing Andrew is also getting in. Since Andrew had on earbuds, he was also unable to hear her. He takes off all of his clothes because he is sweating from the chopping. At that moment, Margaret bares herself and knocks Andrew. They become tangled in each other's nude bodies and scream at one another in frustration. When they do discover towels, they use them to cover themselves. Margaret questions Andrew regarding his father that evening. Andrew, however, cuts it off because he is reluctant to talk about him. And so, she begins to divulge some personal information to him, her underlying preferences and dislikes. After hearing her share her secrets, he hesitantly admits that he finds her to be attractive as well. Afterwards, they sing her bedtime song. Margaret gets up early the next day and gets ready with cosmetics. Grace, on the other hand, knocks on the door, waking Andrew, and they quickly snuggle up on the bed. For them, Grace gets breakfast. Once Joe gets there, he announces that they wish to marry Andrew and Margaret on Grandma Annie's birthday, which is next day. Grandmother Annie is ecstatic about their relationship. Thus, Margaret and Andrew accept it. Following their departure, Andrew discloses that he fears his relatives will find out. Grandma Annie will have a heart attack, and they will be severely torn apart by this. Margaret, however, is able to soothe him and begins rubbing his muscles. She starts to serve breakfast as soon as she realizes what she is doing. It's Andrew's time to ogle how she looks now. They visit the town later to make some purchases. Andrew visits Gertrude while Margaret uses the chance to locate a computer and finish up some work. Margaret looks at the two longingly. Later, Margaret is taken to a bridal boutique by Grace and Grandma Annie. They discover a dress Grandma Annie wore to her wedding there. She also receives a locket from Grandma Annie that has been kept in her family's possession for 150 years. Margaret becomes quite emotional. When she's finished, she takes Andrew out to sea in the family boat. There, she reiterates Andrew's mourning fears by claiming that his family will suffer as a result of this swindle. Although she has come to the realization that she was never raised in a traditional home, she does not want to jeopardize Andrew's love life. Andrew barely avoids crashing the boat by swerving it. Margaret, though, gives in. She is immediately saved by Andrew, who also gives her a warm hug and covers her with a blanket. Joe brings them to a barn at his house, where Mr. Gilbertson has come to see how they are doing. He claims that Andrew still has the opportunity to come clean. However, Andrew refuses to back down from their love tale and walks away. His father is disappointed since he had hoped Andrew would put an end to this. The following day is their wedding. Margaret is escorted down the aisle by Grandma Annie. Margaret interrupts Ramon as he begins to perform the wedding ceremony. She turns to face her loved ones and acknowledges that she is acting in this way to evade deportation. She claims that she coerced Andrew into doing this and that she bears full responsibility. The fact that Andrew has a lovely family and she doesn't want to meddle. Smugly grinning, Mr. Gilbertson watches Margaret walk away from the altar. The place devolves into mayhem. Andrew follows her into their bedroom, but Margaret's already on her way out. Regarding the manuscript that Andrew had shown to her, she informed him that he had discovered a quality work and that he would soon be appointed editor. He lets out his rage when Gertrude enters. She comforts him and implores him to follow her. A fight breaks out between the father and son outside. Grandma Annie gets a heart attack upon witnessing all of this. They rush her away on an airplane. She then gets Joe to swear he won't push his kid into the family company. Andrew is then forced to swear by her that he will try to spend more time with the family. And then she wakes up, healthy and full of energy. Joe and Andrew grumble at Grandma Annie's attempt at acting like she had a heart. She chastises them, explaining that this is the only way to put an end to the father and son's arguments. The pilot is then given the order to fly to the nearby airport. When Mr. Gilbertson drives Margaret back to New York, he remains arrogant. Andrew gets there, but it's too late since the jet takes off at that very moment. Margaret must have loved Andrew, according to Grace and Grandma Annie, as it was love that caused her to part from him in that way and release him from his relationship with her. Additionally, Joe approaches Andrew and expresses regret for treating him so harshly. Margaret prepares to quit the company back in New York. People are terrified to even approach her because of her reputation. Nobody offers her assistance. It is then that Andrew enters, breathless from running there. 3 days ago, he claims he despised her. He used to hope that she would be poisoned or hit by a taxi. However, following the holiday in Alaska, his feelings have changed. He has begun to feel differently about her since their late-night bondings and their first false kiss. In order for them to be able to date further, he then proposes to her. Margaret claims that because she is tough to be around, she is going to be a horrible wife and girlfriend. That doesn't matter, Andrew adds, as he moves in to give her a kiss. She returns the kiss. When they return to the immigration office afterwards, Mr. Gilbertson questions the sincerity of their connection. He begins questioning them individually about their relationship. Despite their apparent love for one another, Andrew and Margaret comically give the incorrect responses, demonstrating how little they actually know about one another. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoy the movie. See you in our next video.